On today's episode of Needed Conversations.
What if this summer could become something more? What it could become is a spiritual renewal for you and your kids, to take this opportunity to get them in a healthy rhythm so that when they step into the fall, they've got these healthy rhythms ingrained within them.
Your children will mirror what you do. They will not mirror what you tell them to do.
Yes, we want them to connect with God, but your children's first means of connecting with God is understanding what presence looks like, period. Knowing that they have FaceTime with you, undistracted. And if you're distracted, your kids are going to follow suit. Again, what does that mean? If you're doing 2 hours before and after bed for the Presence Pledge, do the same with your kids. 2 hours once you wake up, you need a routine. Make your bed, do some chores, go outside, take a walk, swing on the tree swing outside. Get out an art tablet and begin to draw on physical paper. And then the same thing 2 hours before bed. What can you do? Play some board games, read some Bible stories, lay down in bed together. I don't care if your kids are 14 or 15 years old. Like, huddle up in your bedroom and just spend time talking. You will be amazed by how easy it is for your kids to let go of those phones. Welcome back. We took last week off, but we are back with the Presence Pledge. I'm Ryan. This is my wife, Viktoriya. If you don't already know, we are the hosts of Needed Conversations, and we are in the middle of what we like to call the Presence Pledge.
Yep.
And if you want to know more about this and sign up for the Presence Pledge, it's free to join. Go to moremostforever.com. But in a nutshell, the Presence Pledge is...
It's where we commit to doing like a digital detox, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. And that way it gives you an opportunity to use that time to have conversation with your spouse, maybe address some of the things that you guys have been dealing with, and just really bring you guys to the presence of God.
To recenter your marriage on the presence of God and the presence of your spouse. And so we have a lot of great episodes in this series. You can go on our YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts and go back and listen to those as well. But today, because we're getting ready to jump headfirst into summer, we wanted to pivot the conversation a little bit to also include our kids. And maybe you don't have kids, but maybe you want to have kids, or you have friends who have kids. Maybe you want to share this episode. You're going to be able to get something out of it, because we have a responsibility as parents, not just to tell our kids what to do, but to model for them behavior.
Yeah, and this is speaking to aunties and uncles out there that are not married, that don't have children, but also want to make sure that they help the parents facilitate good habits with media. I know it takes a village to raise children, and so even if you don't have children, like Ryan said, this is definitely a great episode for you to listen to so that you can practice, but you can also help those parents create good, healthy boundaries for their children.
And there's a way to nicely nudge people in your life towards choosing better habits, but here's the reality. There's a lot of tablet kids.
Yeah.
We have intentionally set parameters around our children. We have a soon-to-be 7-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Almost 9.
Almost 9, but Toby is going to be 7 at the end of this month. So we know the convenience of handing your kid a phone, especially if you're out and about or in the car, or you're just trying to get something done around the house. And you're like, if I give my kids a tablet, then I'm going to be child-free for just a little bit. And it's like this digital babysitter, but we don't always count the consequences. And so just like with the Presence Pledge, we're not cold turkey telling you to cut off all technology from your kids, because we have the mentality that your kids need to be prepared to how to use technology, but to do so in a responsible way. So we're giving them screen time, but we're monitoring it, and we're making sure that they are also feet to the soil outside. Like they're getting sun time as much as they're getting screen time. And this summer, we want to help you to choose presence. We want to help you and your kids to reframe your relationship with technology. And so this isn't just about you and your spouse anymore. This is about an entire family presence pledge. You all getting on board to say, we're not just going to tell you guys you should or shouldn't do this. We're going to model to you what it looks like to center your life around presence, because this is going to be a valuable asset for you as you grow into adults.
And we're stepping into this conversation with children in mind. And the previous episodes, we really focused on you as an individual, and then also you and your spouse making this commitment, because we always say your children will mirror what you do. They will not mirror what you tell them to do. So oftentimes we see parents struggle to try to lead their children in a good way. But if you look at their habits, daily habits, they are not disciplined. They don't do a lot of these things that they're trying to teach their children to do. And it's, well, why are you trying to expect that out of your child when you're not mirroring that same kind of discipline yourself?
And I can just speak from personal experience, having been working from home for the majority of my kids' lives. My kids were babies when COVID came around. And at that point, I was working for an organization, and I was actually living in a different state. So we were already in that routine of work from home. So the kids knew upstairs at that particular house, I had my office, and it was a little easier to manage, number one, because they're babies. But number two, it was so separated from the house. Whereas in this house, we have the office is right next door to the living room. I literally have to lock the door to make sure that I'm like, until 5 or 6 o'clock at night, Dad has got some stuff to do, whether it's business stuff, ministry stuff. And there's been times I've even had to go outside of the house, which is probably what I'll have to do again this summer, find some coffee houses or something where I can get some work done. I've even considered co-working spaces. Because it is hard when my kids get off at 3 and they run into this room, they give Dad hugs and kisses, which I totally love. But now they're ready for Dad's attention. And I have to say, listen, I'm not trying to ignore you, but I've got work to finish. And so having that conversation with them has been hard, because I know that they see me on my device and on my computer. And they're like, Dad lives around this computer. And it grieves me to a degree. I wish that we had more of a separation, but that's just not the life that we live. But with that, I have tried to be very intentional around meal times to make sure we put that phone away somewhere, that we're having conversations around bedtime as well. I have a routine with the kids, and so does Victoria. And they come and lay down in my bed, or I'm in theirs, and we have these conversations about God, or we play 20 questions, and it's all surrounding Bible stuff. So I'm trying to train them in that way. Then we pray and we have our conversations. And then when I pick them up from school at times or take them to school, I'm having these conversations with them. But it is challenging. So I understand parents out there who are looking at summer as a burden. What am I going to do with my kids to keep them busy? Because also the rat race of trying to have them in any and every activity is also strenuous as well.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about leading up to the summer is to sit down and create a schedule of just little things that I can do with my kids. It doesn't have to cost money. There are so many parks out here. You can do play dates, and you can kind of create a schedule for your kids, especially if they're older, kind of like in our age bracket, where they want to know what's going on, and maybe giving them some chores, but also say, this is what we have to look forward to in the afternoon. And it's something that's free. And that way you also have designated time for you to do some of the work, and then they have some chores that they need to do. And then you also make sure that you're present and you step away and say, hey, this is an opportunity for me to pour into my children because they are off for the summer. And this is also an opportunity for you to make sure that you get them ready for the next school year. Like, I know some of the challenges both of our kids have, and maybe taking the time. I know nobody wants to do extra study work, but even 20, 30 minutes a day or a few times a week, just sitting down and maybe reading a book with them and helping them to actually keep in that routine. Those are the times that your kids are going to remember. The fact that you actually took the time out of your day to be able to be very intentional with them.
Or get an old school library card and go.
Yeah, that's exactly what we told them. We're like, we're going to go get the library card and we'll check out some books and we'll look through the books and stuff like that. So yeah, there's just so many different ways that you can be creative. But I think it takes a little bit of intentionality and planning on your behalf.
Now, of course, that's bearing in mind that you are home with your kids, and we know everybody's routines are different. Maybe both of you work, And so your kids have to go to a summer daycare or to an in-law's house or something. So you got to work in some special connection points. But the temptation is, no matter what your routine happens to be, is to use technology to pacify and entertain. But what if, I want you to consider this, what if this summer could become something more? What it could become is a spiritual renewal for you and your kids, to take this opportunity to get them in a healthy rhythm so that when they step into the fall and new year, maybe your kids are moving from elementary to middle and you're trying to make sure that they've got these healthy rhythms ingrained within them. Now is the time to do this. So we want to help you to resist defaulting to screens and center your home around presence. We want to give you a few pointers, a few little things like we have just started to do. But before we do so, I was thinking of where in the Bible do we find people who were distracted? Because distraction, lack of focus is not anything that's new. Although technology is, obviously they didn't have smartphones and social media while they were walking around in the desert. But distraction was real, and in particular, idolatry was real. And I began to think of the children of Israel coming out of Egypt. They had been ingrained in this culture of idolatry, and it's all they knew. And now they were reconnecting to the one true and living God, and they were in the desert. God wanted to meet with them. They didn't know how to handle the intensity of that kind of relationship. They sent Moses on their behalf. Moses goes up. He's downloading the 10 Commandments and the law from God. And what did the children of Israel do? They start questioning, where's Moses, Exodus 32, who brought us out of Egypt? And so they didn't have his presence, number one. He was their leader who with a staff lifted it up and parted the Red Sea. He was a surrogate to who they knew God to be. He was a deliverer to a large degree, and now he wasn't there anymore. And all they had to go by was the cultural norms that they learned from Egypt. And so reading this, one of the things that I considered was that when presence is delayed or misunderstood, we often turn to what is familiar, fast, and flashy.
That's good.
What did they do? They took all of their jewelry, they melted it down, they created a golden calf, and they started worshiping this golden calf. And it's interesting that they used the word, I believe it was Jehovah. So it's like they had a good intention, a good desire to want to be close to God, but they didn't have any context for presence.
You know, when I think of this story, I think of Aaron, because he was technically kind of left in charge as a leader. And the children of Israel, to me, even though they were adults in the sense, they kind of represent like children. Sometimes whenever our children tend to lean into the culture of this day, we as a leader, we have an opportunity to say, no, this is not what we're going to be doing. Or we're going to say, I guess we're going to acquiesce because that's what they're crying out for. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And not only did they not have the anchor, which was Moses, in their midst, their secondary anchor was participating right along with them in melting the gold. This is in Exodus 32. They melted down gold earrings, symbols of wealth and identity, and forged a counterfeit God. What was missing? What was missing was the visible presence of God and the leadership that reminded them who they were. So if we parallel this to today and how social media and smartphones and technology in general has become such idols that saturate most of our time. I mean, if you were to look at screen time, the average, I believe, one of the statistics that we have here is 4 to 7 hours per day that your kids spend on screen. And I think that's probably conservative. Yeah. When you get into summertime and they're not in school, it probably skyrockets to 8 to 12 hours. And that's including television screens, computer screens, smartphones, tablets, video game consoles, Nintendo Switches. And so we've got all of this that's inundating their minds. And then there's the absence of intentional presence. And so our kids are just more and more every single day drawn to these glowing screens. We trade quiet, formative moments for just quick dopamine hits. Think YouTube, think TikTok. For your babies, think Coco Melon. And we're just distracted as they are. And then they build the idols in the same way that we've built idols.
Right.
So what if the golden calf in that story of Exodus 32 wasn't just about a false god? It was about a substitute for presence. They worshiped entertainment because they feared silence. They feared, what else did they fear?
I mean, not knowing. It's just kind of in between.
The unknown,
so it's
yeah.
like, well, if we don't know, well, let's just kind of
And if you
here.
parallel, not to fully extrapolate out of the context of the story, but they were in Egypt for a while. They were in a gap period, which was the wilderness. It was only supposed to last a certain amount of time. And they were headed to a land flowing with milk and honey. And in the same way, we're exiting out of one school year. We got a gap period of summer. And they're going to step into something altogether new. Even if they're in the same school, they're going to go to a different grade. And we want to help them during this period to find a sense of equilibrium with their use of technology, which in this day and age is inevitable, but also their connection to you as parents, their connection to God as their source, their connection to the outdoors and nature, which is good for their health development, getting oxygen to their cells.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that a lot of us as parents deal with is that sometimes we think, well, if we provide for them physical shelter and food and all, that's pretty much the gist of it. But I think the challenge with parenting is that you're not only responsible for that, but you're also responsible for their emotional needs, their mental needs, their spiritual, like you have to be able to sense what your child is going through. And we've talked about this yesterday with some friends, and we're like, sometimes it feels like you're on this roller coaster ride, because as soon as you learn one season of life and you learned your child in this season, they have stepped into something else. And it makes it very challenging because they're growing so quickly. But I always take this advice when older people come up to me, like grandparents, and say, hey, they're not going to be little for this long. So even though that this may be a very challenging time physically, because there's just schedules that you have to keep up with, and just it feels so fast paced, and it feels like you're in this whirlwind of things that you have to do, but also make sure that your kids are taken care of. Just make sure that you take the time to slow down. It's okay to slow down and be present with your kids and ask questions and have good conversations and really identify what are some of the needs that your kids are struggling with, or some of the things that they may be yearning for. That's something that you could fill, or maybe you can guide them in the right direction.
Yes. And again, it's not like we're asking you to strip them away of all technology, but there's a way to set some parameters around it. And doing some research for this episode, again, 4 to 7 hours is probably the low end of what kids are spending on screens. But more than the number of hours that they're spending on screens, the way that we have formulated content on apps like YouTube and with programs like CoComelon and even Miss Rachel, which they claim that there's benefits for speech development and all of that. But the way that they build those shows are vastly different than the way that you and I probably experience television. Number one, the screen's right in their face. Right. So even getting them away from handheld devices and at least throwing it up on the screen on TV, that's one step towards progress. But then also trading out programs like CoComelon or Miss Rachel for things that are less stimulating, that help to increase attention span versus decrease attention span. And then, of course, children under 5 that are exposed to high levels of screen time, they're going to show delays in emotional regulation. So you might not understand it now, but that temper tantrum might be connected to how much stimulation and dopamine that your children are getting at a fast pace throughout the day. And when you detox them, like any diet that you detox from sugar, you're going to have headaches or caffeine. You got the effects in your body. The same thing is going to be for screen. They're not going to like it at first, and you might have an uptick of some tantrums, but it's going to serve you better in the long run to help them control how they interact with technology.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're raising a generation more fluent in algorithmic stimulation than in the voice of God, but that's got to change. What we're calling to you today is to make a commitment to tear down the digital calf in your house and center them back around presence. But that presence begins with you. Yes, we want them to connect with God, but your children's first means of connecting with God is understanding what presence looks like, period. Knowing that they have FaceTime with you, undistracted. And if you're distracted, your kids are going to follow suit. Again, it's not about perfection. It's about posture, prioritizing sacred time. What does that mean? If you're doing 2 hours before and after bed for the presence pledge, do the same with your kids. 2 hours once you wake up, you need a routine. Make your bed, do some chores, go outside, take a walk, swing on the tree swing outside, get out an art tablet and begin to draw on physical paper. And then the same thing 2 hours before bed. What can you do? Play some board games, read some Bible stories, lay down in bed together. I don't care if your kids are 14 or 15 years old. Like, huddle up in your bedroom and just spend time talking. You will be amazed by how easy it is for your kids to let go of those phones. Not just if you say, okay, kids, no phones 2 hours before bed. That's the new rule. And then you're off distracted doing your thing, right, and they're twiddling their thumbs. They're going to become resentful. But if you make a commitment to say, no, 2 hours before bed is family time. We're going to come together. We're going to talk. We're going to play games. We're going to be in each other's presence. You'll be so surprised how easy it will be for them to let go of those phones.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've noticed too, like even neighborhood kids, my kids would say, well, this person has a phone and they are my age. And so that opens up conversation and says, well, that's the rules of their house, but this is the rules of our house. And one of the things that I've been saying is that if these kids come to our property to play, they're not allowed to be on their phones at all, because I don't know what these kids are watching or what these kids are exposed to. And so even though your kids may see that other children are permitted those things, you will see a very big difference. And it's also an opportunity for you to have a conversation and say, hey, everybody has their rules and this is our rules. And they may not like it for right now, but I know that in the long run, they will appreciate that, because they'll see that they have enjoyed the times outside and playing with their siblings or playing with some neighbors and having a really good time.
But I think it's also helping your kids to start setting relational boundaries.
Yeah.
Like for themselves to say, we know one kid has a phone. His dad wants him to have it just in case he wants to reach out, but it's very restrictive. And he's not on it. He keeps it in his pocket. He's playing around with the kids. Another child in our neighborhood has a phone and she sits there and scrolls on it. I don't know if she's on social media or what she is. And it annoys our daughter.
Kids.
Yeah, it annoys
all
them.
The kids actually told them that if you're going to be sitting here playing, you just go home.
Yeah, just go home. And so we encouraged our daughter to say, listen, if you come over here, you can't be on your phone. That's our rules, and we're here to play. And that teaches them mature interactions like we would expect to as adults, to have that same level of confidence to express, hey, I didn't go out to dinner with you and spend more money than I would just making food at home for you to sit on your phone while we're sitting here at dinner. Some people have this rule among friends, which I think is great. They stick all their phones in the middle, and the first person to pick up their phone picks up the tab.
Yeah, pays for the food.
Yeah, so everybody has an incentive to keep it at bay. But, it's about just having moments, sacred Sabbath moments with your kids where you can worship together, put on some worship music in the background, have a family devotional, and ask yourself, what gold, what precious aspects of your life, time, comfort, convenience, are you melting down to build these glowing altars? Mm-hmm. There's a price that you're paying for it. Just like it was wealthy materials that they melted down to create this calf, there's something you're exchanging for the convenience of that glowing screen. Mm-hmm. What is it? And once you have that realization, then you can replace screen time with soul time. You can decide to listen to an audio Bible during breakfast, or you can go on a wonder walk to explore God's creation, especially if you have little ones. Create your own scavenger hunt. They don't care how sophisticated it is. Make it up off the top of your head. Next, we're looking for an orange leaf, or next, we're looking for a living creature.
The first person, we would go on the hikes and runs, like the first person to find something. And we actually ended up finding a snake that was eating a bird actively. So that was really cool.
The kids thought it was fascinating.
But I just also remember we recently went to a strawberry field to pick strawberries, and that's something that I wanted to do. But I remember Toby kept saying, Mom, this is the best day of my life. And I was like, why is that the best day of your life?
It was just
But
being
he
together.
enjoyed it so much. Most kids would be so begrudging about it. But just those simple things that, that just, I don't know, it's just the simple pleasures of life that sometimes we take for granted. And it's a great way for us to expose our kids, not only teach them a good life lesson, but it's a time that you're spending together. And that's what's important.
And teach your kids about worship too. Put on a song, have a dance party, a praise party. Maybe ask a question to your kids at the end of the day at mealtime. Where did you see God today? Something so simple. Did you see God in something you did outside or talking with a friend? Share Bible stories. Create quiet. Even 5 to 10 minutes of stillness in the morning can help start the day off in a right place. And that silence will ultimately help your kids to start learning how to listen to the voice of God. So I want to read the scripture, Deuteronomy 6:6-7. It says, "These commandments I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home." This is scripture that we can directly apply to say, we've got to impress these ideals upon our kids, or that tablet is going to raise them. That tablet is going to shape them. That tablet is going to build a negative culture in them. One of the other things that I found fascinating recently is these parents online who are trading out these modern day shows with 90s programming, Little Bear, or even the original Blue's Clues, or Reading Rainbow. You remember that? Maybe Victoria doesn't, because all she watched was National Geographic.
Yeah, my dad made us watch National Geographics, and it was on videotapes. For those of you who know what those are. So I've been recently, like if my kids really want to watch something during the day, we watch like an animal documentary. So it's actually fascinating.
Although I will walk in the middle of the living room and there's like a cow giving birth or something, or a goat.
And Mila's fascinated by that. I want to be a veterinarian. Yeah.
So, but we have, in giving our kids screen time, we've chosen to watch 90s sitcoms or some of these things. And you can even look at them, how they sort of, or even Bugs Bunny or some of these, like the transitions between scenes, there's a clear reset. Like it's in between one activity that's going on, and then it's like a still screen, like a portrait, and then some music playing, and then it goes into the next screen. You can see the visible difference. Still, less screen time is better, but if you're going to choose screen time, say, hey, let's watch this. And for them, it's brand new. They don't know any difference, especially the smallest ones. But we want to offer you this final challenge. Burn the calf and build an altar. Make the presence pledge more than you and your spouse. Let it be a family culture that you develop this summer. What if this summer you created memories that shaped your kids' spirit and soul and not just entertained them? Make your living room a sanctuary. And again, it's not about eliminating all screens. It's just realigning your values. Once you reset your values and really contextualize all of your screen time from those morals, it's going to be easy for you to push it away when it's negative, devaluing, and for you to embrace it when it's helpful for you in your day-to-day life. So I want to invite you, if you haven't already, to what? Sign the Presence Pledge. Go right now. And you're not just doing it for yourself. You're doing it for all of you.
That's right. Yeah, well, we want to offer you guys hope. And again, it's not about perfection. It's about intention. And it's just the little things that you guys can do to establish a nice new routine that will help your kids just experience life in a different way, but also build healthy boundaries so that whenever they are alone with those electronics, whether it's at school or they are given liberty to be on those electronics, they know that this is the boundary that I should draw for myself.
That's right. Well, we hope this was encouraging. We're praying for all of you guys this summer that you have spiritual growth, that this is a summer of glory. This is a summer of great exploits in God's kingdom, that you prosper and your kids are healthy and strong, not just physically, but strong in the Lord. And we pray that God would provide grace for the journey. And if you feel overwhelmed, you're like, I'm just completely defeated, and if I don't give my kids a tablet, I'm going to go insane. It's not about detoxing 100% cold turkey. Just start somewhere. Maybe it's not about eliminating as much as it is implementing. Because if you implement something and it's not like no, we're taking this away, it seems like a punishment. But you say, no, we're going to do this instead. You fill up the gaps of time with intentional spiritual and soulful activities. Then before long, they're just going to forget about that phone, right? So set some parameters, but give yourself grace and start somewhere. And if you're not following us on social media, where can they find us?
You can find us at moremostforever.com. We're on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook.
At More Most Forever. I'm Ryan Cole Empowerment on YouTube. And hey, if you haven't already subscribed to my other podcast, it's a teaching podcast for discipleship. Go and look, Breaking Through the Noise. Look it up right now, Breaking Through the Noise.
Yeah, I think the latest episode, he was talking about AI. So that was a really good and informative episode for you as parents to listen to, too, because your kids are going to be part of that as well as we're stepping into new developments, and it's constantly changing. It's something that you need to be aware of.
There's an AI revolution for sure, and you've got to pay attention to it. And I want you to grow in Christ. So that's a good podcast for you, too. And if you are in the upstate of South Carolina, we have started a church. And I'm trying to choose the right language around it, but we have started gathering with people. And pretty soon you're going to see information on our website where we're opening it up more to the public, not just for personal invites, which is what it's been up to this point, but to allow some of you out there who are looking for an Acts chapter 2 modeled church to join us. There's going to be an interest meeting coming up this summer that you're going to want to be a part of. So stay tuned at empoweredcultureministries.org. And as always, if you want to partner with us financially, we are a nonprofit, and we're doing this with all of our resources and all of our time and energy. And we need your help to make it happen. We know God is a provider, but He will use people just like you to bring that provision. So become a partner as little as $20 a month, or maybe give a one-time gift to help fuel this vision and in the process of growing a new church expression here in the upstate of South Carolina. Go to empoweredcultureministries.org. We've also got books and resources there too that you want to pick up. And until next time, this has been
Needed Conversation.
Needed Conversations.